Hey guys, I'm here today with my October wrap-up. In the month of October, I managed to read 8 books, one of which is a graphic novel, and I'm gonna share them with you, and I'm gonna start with the book that I liked the least, and I'm gonna work my way up to the book that I loved the most. So 8 books total, and only one of them was a 5-star read. Another one was a 4.5-star read, and the rest were 3 to 2-star reads. So the first one that I'm going to mention is actually the graphic novel that I read in October, and it's a French graphic novel called Raoul Tabrin Keeps a Secret. The author is Jean-Jacques Semper, and I didn't dislike this graphic novel. It's more of an illustrated book, so I don't know what the difference is between graphic novel and illustrated, like picture book for children. But I thought the art the art was very pretty and really charming. It's very French. It has really beautiful colors, and overall I really liked the art. I just thought the story was, it sort of wanted to be compelling, and it was going in a very predictable direction and a pretty satisfying direction, but then in the end it was really dissatisfying. I thought like we didn't get closure. I thought the writing was kind of lacking. That's why I only gave it 2 out of 5 stars, because I was kind of disappointed. But then again, I am not really the target audience for this kind of book, and I haven't really read a lot of graphic novels or illustrated picture books either, so I'm not the best person to really judge something like this, but I only gave it 2 out of 5 stars. Then also with 2 stars, I have The Stranger by Albert Camus, another French novel, and I read this for my literature class in my master's degree, and I only gave it 2 stars because in spite of how much I appreciated and how much I explored the writing and the different layers of this very complex novel, I just found it a little bit confusing for me. It was not really my cup of tea. So it was just a matter of taste, and even though I appreciated it, I only gave it 2 out of 5 stars. Then I read another children's book. It's called El Club de los Raros. This is a Spanish children's novel. In English, it would be translated to the Club of the Weirdos or something like that. The author is Jordi Sierra y Fabra, and I really like this. I mean, this is the kind of book that I would have loved to read in like 2nd or 3rd grade when I was 7 or 8. And yeah, I could really relate to it. It's a very funny story about how we all have differences and we all have something that makes us ordinary and extraordinary. And it's just a very nice story for children and for people in general. It has a great message. But of course, this is I've sort of definitely outgrown this kind of genre. I'm nowhere near the niche market for this kind of books, so I could only relate to it a certain amount, and that's why I give it 2 stars, because even though I really liked it, it's not really something I'm going to remember or something that I would like to include in my top list of books at the end of the year. Then with 2.5 stars out of 5, I read Psycho by Robert Bloch. This is the original novel that Alfred Hitchcock's movie Psycho was based upon, and I think my rating of this book is based completely on my experience. I'm not really rating the book itself. I'm much more rating my experience reading it, because I'm such a huge fan of Alfred Hitchcock's movie, and I've seen it over and over, and the novel is actually very similar, or if not exactly identical to the movie. So when I was reading it, I felt like, okay, I know this, I've seen it, there's not a great difference between this and the movie, so it felt like the novel didn't have a lot to offer. If anything, the thing that made the novel stand out for me over the movie was the fact that we could explore Norman Bates' psyche and his thoughts a little bit more. But even so, I thought I wasn't getting a lot more out of the novel. So that's why, even though I liked it, it was a story that I'd already read. I mean, I'd already known fairly well. So I only gave it 2.5 out of 5. Then with 3 stars, I read The Metamorphoses by Franz Kafka. I also read this as part of my literature class, and I really liked it. I thought it was very beautifully written. I had never read it before, and it's one of those classics that everyone reads in high school, but I never did. So I was very excited to, approach it for the very first time at this stage in life, and I definitely liked it. It was not something I would have read if it hadn't been for my literature class, but I really appreciated the writing style, the complexity, all the layers. It's really fun to analyze a work like this in a class because you just get so much out of it. So yeah, I definitely could relate to this. I think that it's a very endearing and dark story about identity, about adolescence in a way, about transformation of things and of people, and I would really recommend it. It's really short and it's really beautifully written. I love this edition. It's like a vintage edition, and I really liked it. Then also with 3 stars, I read The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. Now, when I finished reading this book, I immediately gave it a 2-star rating. But now that I think back on it a little bit, I think I'm gonna bump it up to a 3 because, in a way, this was a very disappointing novel just because it's Patrick Ness and I really like him. I really like his writing. I've read pretty much everything else he's written. And I was really looking forward to this. And in a way, it's kind of a fresh take on the typical YA book. But at times I felt like it was not very accomplished. Honestly, and this is something awful that I shouldn't say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Sometimes I felt like I was reading a not very interesting version of a John Green book. That was just how I felt. I'm not saying that's what it is. It's just my opinion. That's how my experience of the book was. And I liked the characters. The writing is very good as usual, but I was hoping for a little bit more. So I gave it 2 stars, but then thinking back on it, reflecting on it, I think it's actually very interesting as an experiment because this book has, on every chapter, we have like dual plot points, like we have 2 different plot lines to follow. For example, this says chapter the 4th, and then we have like a summary of what happens with a certain group of characters who are referred to as the indie kids, and they're this like really super special kids who have like magical powers and fight aliens and witches and demons, and it's like this very extraordinary opposite of the story. And then the actual chapter that we read is centered around the actual protagonists and the actual main characters of the novel, who are very ordinary people, and that's why the title of the novel is The Rest of Us Just Live Here. And I think that's why I'm gonna give it a 3-star rating instead of a 2, because it's a really interesting take on what it means to be ordinary or extraordinary, what makes you special. There's also some mention, some stress on mental health issues, but I didn't really like the way they were addressed. So I don't know. It was a fresh take on YA, but sometimes, like I said, it felt like I prefer John Green for this. So it's a 3. I know some people are gonna love it, but honestly, I feel like it was just a 3. And then moving on to my favorite 2 books of the month, with 4.5, I have The Rental Heart and Other Fairy Tales by Kirsty Logan. She is an Irish or Scottish writer, and this is the first book I ever read by her, and it was just a wonderful experience. Like the title says, it's a collection of short stories and sort of fairy tale-esque retellings and such, and I just loved it. It's a collection of 20 fairy tales, and they're all amazing. They're all amazing, and honestly, I just loved the writing. It felt like poetry. Every sentence was so beautiful, so poetic, so musical, and this is exactly the kind of collection of short stories that I like, because it's very greedy and sexual and magical, but in a very dark way, and I just adored this. I couldn't recommend this enough. And then the book that I gave 5 stars to, it's absolutely one of my favorite books of the year. It was There But For The by Ali Smith. I had never read anything by Ali Smith before, and this was just the best experience. It's a book about a man at a dinner party who decides to go upstairs and lock himself up in one of the bedrooms, and he decides not to leave that bedroom for days and then weeks and then months and months and months. And it was just a wonderful experience. It's like nothing I've ever read before. It was very stream of consciousness, very it was sort of addressing a lot of issues at the same time. It focuses on different characters and different points of view, and it was just a magical experience. It felt very experimental. Alice Smith plays a lot with the spelling of words, with grammar, with punctuation. There's barely any punctuation marks here, so everything reads very quickly, so it's very fluent, but at the same time you have kind of no idea what you're reading. But it's wonderful because you feel like you are in such a tight connection with the character and with the author. So when you get into it, boy, you really get into it. So I don't really know what else to say about this book. It was just, I think it's one of those books that you just have to try and read, and if you like it, you'll love it. And if it's not for you, then it's not going to be for you. That's it. But yeah, Alice Smith is an author that I really, really want to revisit in the future. So now, very briefly, I just want to mention the books that I would like to read in the month of November. So this is my November TBR, and I have The Elephant Vanishes, a short story collection by Haruki Murakami. I have The 13 Clocks by James Thurber, prologue by Neil Gaiman. I have Mirror in the Mirror by Michael Ende. I have Krabat and the Legend of the Satanic Mill by Ottfried Preußler. I have Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. I'm already like 50 pages in, and it's really funny and really interesting. The next one that I have is Career of Evil, the third Cormoran Strike novel by Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling, and I'm really excited because I've loved the previous ones. And the last one that I would like to read in the month of November is The Slipper and the Spindle by Neil Gaiman. So I will see you next month in my November wrap-up. See you!